Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thank you for joining me on a new episode of the Music Reviewer Podcast. My name's Josh, and today's going to be a new episode of Best and Worst Track of the week of February 13th. If you're new to Best and Worst Track of the Week, all it is a show where I take all new entries into the Billboard Hot 100, give them all a letter grade, and take one that's the worst, take one that's the best. That's all it is. And if you're just new to the podcast in general, welcome as well. I am just a dude that likes to talk about music, and I review albums semi-frequently. And speaking of which, the latest album review is from the latest Still Corners album, The Last Exit. I thought that was an interesting album overall. Consensus on it is that I thought it was pretty good, but if you're interested in Still Corners, go ahead and check that album out, but also the review. They're a dream pop act. That's kind of had their relevance peak sometime around the early 2010s when I guess there was an indie boom, but they seems like they're kind of under the radar now, but they've been putting out some pretty solid albums, I think, still. But like I said earlier, this is just a new episode of Best and Worst Track of the Week. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, thought that was an interesting week. Pretty light in terms of material. The best track of the week was from Rosalia and Billie Eilish with that killer track. I gave that best track of the week. The worst track of the week was from YBN Namir. Just a pretty average, inconsequential rap track for that tries to really lean on 21 Savage's style. But yeah, this week in terms of material, I feel like it's pretty inconsequential as well. Like the charts are pretty stagnant. It feels like, especially like in the top tens, there's just the stuff that's on there right now is just waiting to be pushed out by something relevant to drop, like an album bomb or just like a random Cardi B track or something like that, which will actually might be happening soon. Pretty light week as well. It looks like we're covering 6 tracks. A lot of tracks from Lil Durk this week. If you're wanting to hear, I think some stuff that dropped from his deluxe album. I think that's where this is from. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into some highlights of the chart this week. Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo still at number 1. Like I said, top 8 unchanged. Top 10's pretty similar as well. But somehow The Weeknd did get Save Your Tears up till number 8. And I still don't think that's off of the Super Bowl push, if there's going to be a Super Bowl push. So, yeah, pretty impressive again by The Weeknd. Blinding Lights is still at number 3. Yeah, pretty crazy. 61 weeks on the chart. Unfortunately, though, number 10, Whoopty by CJ, the mediocre, I can't even remember really what the track sounds. Really mediocre trap song that somehow is just getting a boost. I assume probably because of the radio or TikTok. What You Know by Love, up to 13 by Pop Smoke. It's really interesting, especially how old that album is now. It's been a slow climber as well there. But on a positive note, Streets by Doja Cat up to 18. It's a great track right there. Hopefully it goes up a little bit more. Also another interesting push coming from You Broke Me First by Tate McRae up to 23. That cracked the top quarter. That's been a slow and steady riser as well. It's been a few months on the chart already. Also Heat Waves by Glass Animals. I thought that was kind of dead a couple weeks ago, but it's somehow still pushing up to 86. But take that for what you will. It's at least pushing up a little bit higher somehow. And then also the dropouts that I thought were interesting. Savage Love and Take You Dancing dropped out by Jason Derulo. So pretty bad week for him. And then also the best track, sadly, from last week from Billie Eilish and Rosalia, Lo Vas a Olvidar, dropped out. So those were some highlights. I don't think really anything that's happening this week is going to make that big of an impact in the long run. I feel like the charts are just kind of waiting for something exciting to happen. But we'll start with the first entry that we're covering this week. Kanye Crazy by Lil Durk, coming at 91. not much to say about this. It sounds like a Lil Durk track. Um, it's not exactly his best work, but it's not the worst thing ever. The hook just seems a bit phoned in on that Kanye crazy hook. I feel like you could have been a little bit more creative with that hook. The track overall has a smooth nature to it with like some guitar embellishments and this smooth sax samples going on, thrown in the background, and sounds like pretty mixtape worthy on a pretty undeveloped track, and doesn't really have that much of a length to it either. And it features like that typical piano centric beat that Lil Durk loves. So I give this track a C. Next track was Baila Conmigo from Selena Gomez and Rauw Alejandro at 74. First time covering this dude, Rauw. He, in my opinion, just based off this track, he sounds like he's going for the Ozuna hype and trying to sound exactly like Ozuna, and he does it quite well, actually. If I didn't know the track of this or the artist on here, and I was just listening to this and I came by it, I would think Ozuna was collabing with a female artist, because Selena Gomez is doing this thing where she's singing in Spanish and all of her new tracks, and it seems like she's really trying to go for that reggaeton Latin pop push. This track, in comparison to the last one I covered, really has some potential because it sounds more, I guess, just organic in terms of like fitting in that sort of genre. Like if this came on a Caliente XM, Sirius XM station like playlist, I would be surprised either. But anyways, there's a nice playful opening guitar riff on here. Like I said, Selena's really trying to lean on this reggaeton thing really heavily, like trying to reinvent herself. Rauw actually does a good job though, like I said, of selling that Ozuna flavor. But overall, the track's kind of anticlimactic. He tries to establish a vibe, and it does that, but that's it. So I give it a B. Next track was Gravity by Brent, Faiyaz, DJ Dahi, and featuring Tyler, the Creator, at 71. Honestly, other than Tyler being on here, I'm not too familiar with Brent, but he seems like a pretty prominent R&B artist if you really want to go there. Seems like he has somewhat of a following. Pretty decent sounding track. I thought it heavily leaned on like that smooth neo soul Steve Lacy internet type sound that's going on right now. Brett's performance here is pretty good for me not knowing too much about him. He has a smooth voice. Kind of reminds me of like Gold Link or something like that. And also here on this track, we get a featured demonic low end effect going on one of Faiyaz's verses. Very Tyler, the Creator like, but I thought it was Tyler actually when I heard it, but it's not. It actually doesn't sound too bad in contrast to like the smooth delivery on the choruses, and it fits surprisingly okay. When Tyler does come in, he does have a verse. Doesn't really impact the track too much. I feel like if the track didn't have him, it wouldn't really affect like the quality of the track, but I feel like the name power definitely affects the prominence of the track. But overall, I think the unsung hero of this track is like the production. It really sounds great. There's some dominant percussive elements on here that really give the track a nice feel, but at the same time, they're not too overbearing either. Nice balance overall. I gave it a B. And that came in at 71 if I didn't point that out. Next track was Finesse Out the Gangway from Lil Durk and Lil Baby. This track came in at 39. I really feel like this collab could have been better, but it starts immediately with this really cheap, thumpy piano intro. Sounds a tad too busy as well. Like it's just doing too much. It at least sounds like they try to change it up. I know Lil Durk really loves leaning on that piano stuff. I guess here it's just a little bit more fast and I guess agile in terms of like the traditional slow stuff. Lil Baby on his feature somehow goes harder. He gives the track a little bit more life. There's more color and effects on his performance as well. Not a bad feature. He actually kind of made the song better. And I like overall the track also has like a nice call and response hook in it. Actually sounds a bit hooky, a little catchy overall. But overall I just thought it was phoned in by Lil Durk. Pretty inconsequential sounding track as well. I give it a C. And that's it for the regular tracks. We're now to the point where I'll give the best and worst track. Worst track always starts first, so we on a positive note. This is a really bad worst track. This is a meme artist. If you're familiar with just like Twitter culture in general, or just the stuff that Needle Drop covers just to be, I guess, stay relevant and just point out the shit that's like really trash that comes out. He does kind of pick on Tom MacDonald, and that's who the worst track of the week belongs to, is Fake Woke. This is just kind of his brand of like the stupid, I'm a outcast white rapper, no one wants to accept me. This totally fits into that mold, and this is probably one of the worst tracks I've heard in quite some time. Definitely takes the cake for worst track this year. First of all, it's centered around this terrible sounding guitar riff that sounds like it was legit written by me in middle school when I was sitting in my room learning how to play guitar. That bad. He sounds like RC, Cola, Slim Shady, cheap percussive effects going on, cheap synth strings, trying to color up the track. A god-awful hook that somehow goes for a very melodramatic, effect, but it ends up sounding robotic. So, absolutely pandering to a certain, variety of people, that don't actually realize they're actually the ones that are fake woke, and just leaning on elementary ideas that most people can come to realization to by the time they're 15, if we're really being honest here. And he, lyrically wise, he points out some pretty bad points. The song covers the notion that a lot of ideas are being silenced and censored, yet his song is on fucking Spotify. Like, the biggest streaming platform in the world. You're on Spotify. You're not being censored. It's stupid. Worst track of the week goes to him. Best track of the week, kind of won by default. It was by Lil Durk and Pooh, Shiesty. Should Have Ducked came in at 53. This track, honestly, I think there was another track I covered a couple weeks ago by the same artist collabing Pooh, Shiesty and Lil Durk. Except I think it was a Pooh, Shiesty song featuring Lil Durk, and this is a lot better. I kind of got to see what Pooh Shiesty's really made of here. This track has a dark and sinister nature to it. It really exudes the gangster rap aesthetic really well, and I think that's when Lil Durk is at his best. Kind of also playfully, I think it kind of throws in some jabs at Lil Pump with some of his borrowed ad-libs, but of course without the soft and playful nature that Pump would actually put on his music. Here we kind of get more of a harder, darker flavor of that sort of thing. Pooh sounds like the best I've ever heard him, even though I don't really know much of his music. He sounds very Gucci Mane-like. It actually reminds me of some of the really good collabs that back in the day Lil Wayne and Gucci Mane would have had. Some melodic material and instrumental that's a bit buried, but it works. Chris hi-hats. Overall, interesting track. I gave it best track of the week for that reason. And that's it this week. If you stick around for the length of this episode, thanks for listening this week. Tune in next week if you want. Like and subscribe on YouTube if you're there. Leave some feedback, good or bad. Subscribe on your preferred streaming service as well. But I'll see y'all later. Take care of yourselves.